Okay, so welcome to our January 30th Mentoring Stewards Coherence call. And unusual small group today. And so it's kind of fun to welcome John Brockett into his very first call with us today. So welcome, John. Oh, good. And Sharon's very first one. Hi, Sharon. Woo!
Hi there.
I was just, we just hit record and I was just welcoming people who will be watching the video later possibly and saying, what a small group, an unusually small group for us today, but we were welcoming John to his very first call. And now we're welcoming you, Sharon, to your very first call. Woo! And I could tell Shelly, she's on mute right now, but she's excited too. So we'll do some little introductions in a minute. This coherence call is for mentoring stewards to really help us, what we've been calling, pardon me, co-mentoring, and to really live out our mission of good of the whole, to be living for the good of the whole, but also to be able to infuse our life and our work with the seeds of change that are here, and with the vision and mission for good of the whole, so that no matter who we are and where we're at on the planet, we're literally practicing resonance, we're learning new kinds of technologies, new social technologies of how to be in community with one another, and we're mentoring, co-mentoring on different topics of interest for us as we're evolving the planet and evolving consciousness on the planet. And so I'm going to explain this topic for this call today in just a minute, but we always begin with some resonance, and then I think we'll do a check-in and get to meet you guys a little bit more on the inside here today, because we're really happy to have you here. So I'm going to turn this over to Shelly, who's going to do a little heart resonance for us.
Thank you. And welcome, Sharon and John and anyone who's watching this replay. The universe is brilliant. How it creates what it creates. So I hope today that you both share why you're called here, what really brought you here, in reference to being a mentoring steward, and what does that mean for you. So let's start this call, as we do with the resonance call, with really a few minutes of acknowledgement of this divine intelligent field. So just taking a moment and allowing yourself to fully drop into your body, trusting that whatever else is going on, all kinds of movement and lots stirring, lots are freezing. Many people are freezing in the world. Just allowing our bodies to slip into this. We've been talking about the slipstream, this slipstream of love and connection, and this capacity to really track this living conscious presence that's guiding us into our highest potential here as mentoring stewards. So just simply taking a few breaths, very relaxed, comfortable in your own body, acknowledging our oneness with the earth, acknowledging our oneness with the space, the spaciousness. Opening to greater creativity and love. And here also just really having gratitude for the courage within that's moving you to step into your highest potential, your most aligned purpose, your divine design. Just feeling that connection, sense of wholeness. And here this morning, a sense of home. And even just being in this slipstream of silence, just for a moment, feeling our connection within the circle, the connection within our families and community. Taking another breath, gratitude for yourself, and just coming present back into our call. So thank you, and I'll pass it back to Julie.
Thank you, Shelley. Since we have John and Sharon here, it's so special. I want to just kind of share just a little bit of history for you guys, and then we can hear a little more for you. I'm sure you've been on the website and you know, but I'm just going to read the vision and mission again, because then I want to give you a little bit more history, and we'll come into your sense of call for this. Thank you, Shelley. That was beautiful, and it was a beautiful way to bring us into this conversation. So our vision is a world where every individual feels valued, connected, and whole. And our vision is said fully expressed as a whole being within a unified whole, within a greater whole. And we're going to bring that back into conversation later, because we want to muse into the languaging of that, because we know what that feels like when it's not a lot of words, but we don't know that the world knows what that is or feels like without a whole lot of words. So we're going to muse into that idea, but really a world where every individual feels valued, connected, and whole. And we use the home frequency. You heard Shelley say that today too, is this coming into the sense of wholeness and this interconnected reality of who we really be. It's a greater whole. It's like you can't separate our wholeness from the wholeness of the cosmos, the wholeness of the planet, the wholeness of community. So we're going to muse into that in a little bit. And our mission has been stated as to cultivate an ethos of wholeness and nurture our innate capacity to live for the good of the whole. And so I'm going to bring this in because it's an important premise that good of the whole is more than just good of what's good for the whole. It really is this understanding, this code of life, this inherent capacity of who we be as whole beings to really contribute to and live for this greater wholeness that we're a member of. And so it's hard to express because it's more like an idiom where the sum of the words create this whole new dynamic that we're hoping to live into. And so we'll do a check-in today, and I just wanted to bring part of my check-in is just a real honoring of Shelley as Good of the Whole co-founder and steward. We've really been listening to this organism for the last 5 years, going on 6 actually, because 6 years. We're in 7. We're in year 7. Oh my gosh, I'm counting math. Okay, so for 7 years, we were called together to work on a project for Barbara Mark Hubbard. And in the meantime, we were holding this same energy and essence. We were listening to this organism that was trying to inform us. So we've been patient, and we're holding it in a way that it doesn't look like normal organizations. We've had a hard time saying, is it a nonprofit? Is it a for-profit? Because Good of the Whole really is this field wanting to inform the culture in the evolution of consciousness on our planet. This field was really calling us to help us to do that. And so that's why the topic of our conversation is coming in today. And I just wanted to just begin with that a lot of people will come in and go, what is Good of the Whole? And hopefully you now will help inform and define what Good of the Whole really is. So that's what our mentoring stewards are all about. And saying that, I'm just doing a brief intro, and there's our other amazing mentoring steward, Linda Rosenthal, who's been with us from the very beginning as well. Welcome, Linda. We're just now doing a little introductions. And so you haven't missed a thing. This is John and Sharon, 2 new mentoring stewards. And we're just going to open it up to a little check-in. Normally these calls do go with our resonance attunement and then a check-in. On the first Wednesday of every month, we usually have a larger community, and we're really checking in and seeing what's going on with us and how we can support one another, uplift one another, and continue this co-mentoring process. So with that, let's introduce ourselves and check in that way. How are you living for the good of the whole? Who are you? What makes your heart beat in this world? And part of the conversation for today is, what's our why? What is the why inspired this statement that we're going to bring in today? What's your why for doing what you're doing on the planet? So maybe I'll drop that in as the question, what's your why? And we'll do a check-in. And Sharon, you're unmuted. John, you are muted. And Shelly's recording, I think, one person at a time. So when you're not speaking, if you mute yourself, the camera will make sure it's picking up on whoever's talking. And so with that, I'm complete. And I'm passing the talking stick into the center. The love lives here, talking stick into the center.
Well, this is Sharon. I can go first. Hi, Linda. So I've been, I guess, on the peripheral of this group for a while. I've been tuning into the heart resonance calls for, I don't know, a month or 2. And I've been connected with Marion and Glenn Head. Marion, through the Revolutionary Agreements, Linda and I were certified together in that program with Marion. So I met Linda then. And then I've recently started working with Glenn around Regenerous. So I guess I retired from corporate world in 2017. So a year and a half, I guess, going on almost 2 years. And so retired in quotes. That really just kind of freed me up to it's really been a journey of these last 2 years of what now, and a lot. I've realized how much I needed to release what was, and that's still continuing. And so now I'm starting to, because I feel like the new is going to be so different. It's just, this is the new for me. It's like really being in, like, I'm here because I want to hang out with you people. I like you. I like the energy. It's a fit for me. I've been about it all my life. I started I was really young when I felt that call. And I was always different that way from my family, the spiritual call aspect. And in high school, explored it in different ways. And then in college, explored it in different ways and learned how to meditate. And then I got a master's in transpersonal psychology at the California Institute of Asian Studies, now Integral Studies. And so I've always followed that. And but then where it led me was into organization development. So my career was primarily in training, leadership development, organization development for many years in healthcare and in industry. And finally, last six years of my career were in a global consulting firm, which was actually a great place to be. But the work was it wasn't satisfying. It wasn't essential. It was, I just wasn't able to really feel like I could ever bring myself as fully as I wanted to be into that, in those structures. So I'm really open right now to very new structures and seeing what can be created, and healing. Just I'm less feeling like pulled to do, and much more about being and allowing. And so I guess that's probably good for now. I'm complete.
Thanks, Sharon. I had this vision. I usually don't interrupt and talk after people do on this call, but I just had this vision of you teaching and coaching trainers and consultants for corporate, doing this, like bringing this into the new, like now, like, wouldn't that be cool? So anyway, no pressure or anything for you to create anything new, but.
I have done some of that, and there are some opportunities out there for me to do more of that. But right, it's I'm not there yet. Sure, and I don't know if I will be or not.
Yeah, I'm just teasing you, but what a vision for the world.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I know. I have. This is part of. Actually, I'll say one more thing. Then this is part of my the yearning. Maybe that's a word I could use. It's like I have so much treasure. I had a dream at one point years ago where I walked through the back of a garage and down through, and found a doorway, and I went in the doorway, and there was my treasure room. And it had all of my tools. It had my, the tarot and the crystals and all the things and it's like, they were all covered in dust, and it's like, I hadn't been in there in a while. And so I'm back in that room, but, and I'm slowly looking at all these things that, I just have this lifetime I have so much knowledge and so much there. And now it's like, I'm at a point in my life, wow, how do you give that? Even looking at the books, I see that in your place, Julie, too. It's like treasure trove of books. And that's only a part of them. Spiritual library. What do we do with all this? And how do I give this now? And in what way that can be received? So I'm open.
There. So I'm the other new guy. Sharon, thanks for that share. That resonates in many ways with me. Of course, I'm turning 70 years old this year, and I look back, and I was with a friend of mine the other day who's a spiritual brother, and we were having a session with each other. And he goes, we got to realize that from birth to 70, you're alive about 25,000 days. And when you turn 70, if you live to 80, that's only 3,000 more days. So I want to make those days count. That's what I'm looking for. But I usually live my life not in a time frame very well. And that frustrates a lot of people that are close to me because I don't look at it that way. I love the concept of the slipstream because just a really brief story that'll be part of my story, and that is I rode touring motorcycles with a group for years and years and years. And going down the highway, you come upon a semi-trailer, big truck, and if you're not in a rush to get somewhere, you have all this buffeting that's going on because they're creating a great wave and you're jerking. But the concept is to get in behind the big trailer, and the air is absolutely calm. You can take your hands off the handlebars. You can do whatever you want because you are in the airstream groove of a larger process than just your own through all the buffeting. So that's kind of where I like to live if I possibly can. And I've created enough turmoil in my life to stay in the rough stuff instead of being into the slipstream. But I know that my heart is happiest, and the love that I feel and the gratitude I feel happens when I'm in the slipstream. Now, being a psychotherapist for 25 years, that's what I did, and I quit that about closing my practice 12, 15 years ago, something like that. But that's in a good session, as you all know, that's what happens. We move into the slipstream, and people can find their true self without all of the buffeting that's going on in the illusion of who they are. And so that was always my task to do that. Now, I always told everybody as a therapist, the best thing I could do would be to plant seeds, because it's a short frame, but you get it if that contact is made. I get it when I'm in contact with my true self, and when I'm not, my goal is to stay more in contact with my true self. I grew up in a very blue-collar, angry family, but I was always asking the question. I didn't even ask the question outside, because I was actually punished for asking the wrong questions that were outside of the parameters of which this family was operating. And I knew, as Sharon, as you said, I felt like, what am I doing in this family? However, I did my darndest to accommodate the structure as it was. And as a matter of fact, in order to get any semblance of love, I had to excel in certain things that I knew got that response, which I always thought was another curious thing, because the response I got was very limited to the performance, obviously. And I wanted the love to be sustained. And I didn't have an outlet for that except for asking the questions, the larger questions of, what are we doing here? What am I doing here? What is going on here? And I started getting information, which was pretty wonderful, but it was very brief because I had no other place to bounce that off of. So anyway, the story goes on, and then I knew that I was terrible in high school. I was in a class of 630, and I graduated 27 from the bottom because I was totally lost. I went in the military, and I was in the service for 4 years. I went to Vietnam, and I got a realization of things. And when I came back, I knew that what I wanted was to heal wounds and open to the slipstream, so to speak. So I got my master's degree. I started a counseling psychology. I went through a number of variations. I also worked with corporations. I did team building and conflict resolution. I had a lot of bank CEOs that were alcoholics, which I'd say was probably like my dad. But anyway, did that, and it was very satisfying for a long time. I did a lot of group work. But then it got not so satisfying because I think it was Freud even said it. He said, and I realized this in my practice, people do not come to me to cure their neuroses, they come to perfect it. And I realized that what I was doing with my psychological approach was developing a system for them to really get better at their neuroses. And so I got a little disenchanted with that. Some friends of mine started a Sunday morning spiritual gathering, and I administered to that for about 3 years, which was very satisfying. We built it from 10 people to 150 in about 2 years. And then the ego kicked in, and we go, well, hell, if we can do this, let's go ahead and put the money down and rent a place that'll hold 3,000 and see what happens. Well, I can tell you what happened is the whole thing disintegrated, and we couldn't hold that energy. And I realized that at that point with my schematic, I was not as powerful as I thought, which was a great learning experience. So then another few variations, but my heart has always been, and I worked with some really great people. I worked with M. Scott Peck's community building organization. I worked with Robert Bly and Michael Mead in the mythopoetic men's movement for a while. So I've been around the energy that all of you are now so wonderfully. From the moment I even called Julie, even before I knew who she was, and everything since, is like I feel really home. So I really appreciate being here a lot, and thank you all. And I'll give whatever I can to support the slipstream, and I already feel that energy is coming back. And as I think it was Julie the other day on Monday said so beautifully, is that when I breathe in, I'm informed, and when I out breathe, I inform. And that's a beautiful, I've been using that for the last 2 days. So Julie, thank you. That's enough. I'm complete.
I'll pop on. Good morning. John, you didn't have to make too much of an introduction. I just had to see this wizard standing behind you there, and that pretty much says a lot. I don't see a lot of half-life-size wizards, but I think it's a telling sign. Right. And Sharon, it's so good to see you here. Beautiful. So how and why am I living for the good of the whole? That's my life. No, it hasn't been my life. It's been my recent life. The part that got me where I am now as a holistic healer, transpersonal psychology teacher, writer, is that I would write in my journals. And when I was going through tough times, I didn't have anyone to talk to. I had my journals, and I had a tree. And I felt that, when I connected with nature and could talk to this particular tree, I was getting insights. And along the way, when my sister-in-law passed away, she was 35. And I was as close with her as my own sister. And I had a lot of questions about life and death and everything in between. And the journals, the writing gave me insights. Somebody here was talking about getting those aha moments. And so the insights were really teaching me. It was a voice from my higher self that was teaching me about life and how to live and about death and what do we do in between. And so my business is called Inside Out, because I felt I had to get some of these insights out to other people. And I had no idea how to do that. So over the years, everything just has evolved to staying the course of, it's not about me, it's all about me, but it's not about me at all. So it's all about me learning who I am, and then realizing, like when you have insights, you want to share them, you want to get them out. What good is it to feel wonderful and whole and complete if you're not helping others to do that as well? So I learned the concept of bodhisattva, and just wanting others to be uplifted, to feel healthy, to feel whole, and to make that connection with their higher self. So that's what I do. I think I've been living in the slipstream just by choice, because I was not one for the corporate world. I love one-on-one or small groups. Although I've been in front of larger groups and then I've taught, and it's all rewarding. It's just a matter of, it's not about me. It's about the message. It's about the being whole. It's about connecting in with remembering who we are. And so why I'm here every Wednesday is to really keep that sacred space of knowing this is the seed pod of something that is going out to the world. That's my vision, to spread those seeds of wholeness, that we are not separated, that we're on this planet together, that we have work to do, and we have to realize how interdependent we are. So in my independence and my love for my own singular life and how I've chosen to live it, the balance of that is doing everything that I do for the good of the whole, whether that's my family, my community, my clients, my, these organisms that I'm part of. So life is a very interesting and fun ride, and I am so happy to be here. Long check-in, but that's me, and I'm happy to have some new faces here too. I'm complete.
I'll pop right in and be quick. So good to deepen the roots with you all. I mean, really, that's for me, it's this relationship to good of the whole is my life. It's watching how the different dimensions of myself are coming together as one living whole being, and the joy of that, the ease of that. And I think this conversation about the slips I can't even say it anymore. So slipstream is perfect, because I feel like good of the whole is this container for people to experience, embody, and express this experience of what today we're calling the slipstream. And that's my life, is that frequency, that slipstream of love, that when we tap into it, we feel whole. And from that place, whatever we do is in service to the good of the whole. It's just a natural response of the body to attract in those ones that really resonate with that. And so for me, just really simply, it became really, I became really conscious about, I'm ready for this upgrade of myself. And with that is coming some new experiences involved with the Game Changer, with Pachamama. Julie will talk a little bit about us being involved with other organizations, bringing in our voice and really connecting in for the good of the whole in a larger, expansive way. And I just wanted to speak to one other thing, which was, the other piece of good of the whole that has really shown up is really this experience of love. And 2 years ago, it began with love more. We had this beautiful experience of working together, creating greater visibility for loving more. And then that evolved into Love Lives Here. And that was a 40-day experience last year. And so as part of the good of the whole, and as part of being part of this mentoring, this mentorship, is listening for how does that feel calling for us to come forth. And, whether Love Lives Here will be 40 days again or what it will be, we're inviting you as mentors, mentoring stewards, to come in and help us bring this forward, help us open up the world to create an admin so Julie and I can back off a little bit and really do what our passion is, and not do all the detail work or the Facebook or the social media. So these are some of the things that I just wanted to kind of bring in, that as mentoring stewards, you're coming into, that your voice is equal, every bit equal to ours. And we're all here coming into this gorgeous slipstream, which is really this river of expression for good of the whole. So with that, I'm complete, and I pass it over to you, Julie.
Thank you. I feel called to do just a brief check-in as well, just to put my expression in that. And thank you. It's like I love the weaving of all the threads, and it's very evident. It's fun having the psychotherapy coming from both of you, coming into this too. As a psychotherapist myself, we've all kind of got that healing mode here. All of us have had incredible lifetime experiences of working with people. So we get wholeness, right? And so I'm going to just bring in a check-in for me. I'm here in New York City. I'll be attending the Unity Earth events. We're having a convergence on Friday with actually world leaders, spiritual leaders from several different countries are flying in. It's going to be an incredible event. On Friday, we converge and work as I was in the Toronto Convergence, and so I think they're shaping it the same way of just bringing people together to look at synergy and how can we do that. And I have to say, some of our practices here on Good of the Whole and us working together are by far outstanding when it comes to being a part of other organizations who still aren't getting like how to attune, how to hold resonance, how to hold this field and stay in this field and co-create together. So sometimes that gets frustrating when we all come together and want to stand up and give a commercial for who we are and who we represent and what we're here to do, that old corporate life that we were talking about. So really holding that field and continuing to plant these seeds is an important piece when we're working with other organizations. And an expression, the expressions of Good of the Whole until now have been really clear of, we've got this mentoring steward piece of bringing together individuals and organizations who are here holding the same frequency, living for the good of the whole, and having that influence our lives, our homes, our communities, our families, our workplaces. So that's one important expression that we've had. Another important expression that we've had is, and we'll be doing more with, and which is my passion, is the media and arts. It's like, how do we infuse the same frequency into arts and media to reach more people, to affect a greater audience? How do we reach mass consciousness? So we started out with, we're going to have this blog and we're going to curate this blog and things, and now we're like talking about TV shows, so it's like, we'll see where that wants to go. But you all know I have a radio show and have been working with different kinds of media and have a mentor who is really supportive of how do we evolve to that next stage. And then the third expression that I see clearly for Good of the Whole is developing these programs and services, developing different ways that we can literally go out and teach these concepts. We've been talking about heart resonance for a long time, is how do we teach heart resonance to people so that they're holding that in the corporate boardroom and the kindergarten classroom. Like, how do we make this real and tangible to the world? How do we manifest what's coming through this organism of Good of the Whole out into the world in real tangible ways that we can touch and feel? So that's an introduction to one of my passions that came through, and Shelley and I were on the phone last week, so I'm going to transition into a topic for us to co-muse into together. Is that one of my passions? John mentioned his childhood, and I was a part of a very similar childhood where there wasn't a lot of love, there wasn't a lot of security, there wasn't a lot of sustainable anything. I grew up in poverty and abuse, and it really informed my world because I had an early childhood near-death experience at a young age and saw the other realms and really began communicating and living in both worlds, and came here on this planet going, what's wrong with humans? They don't get it. But I say that in that one of my deepest passions has been understanding resilience and what makes resilient kids, what makes healthy children. And the research, when I, as a psychotherapist, as a young psychotherapist, I did some special training on resilience because we were looking at when No Child Left Behind came in, you can go in the classroom and teach certain things, or you can look. And Alaska did this incredible program in their schools with No Child Left Behind by studying resilience and studying what makes children healthy and happy and whole. And the number one thing, and you're all going to love this, the number one thing, I just gave a speech on this. I've been giving speeches on this for 30 years. The one thing that makes children of adverse childhood experiences, so when they've endured abuse, chemical dependency in the home, incarceration in the home, sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental, emotional abuse, all of the top adversities that children go to, the number one thing that will help them grow into a healthy adult is connection. And so the research shows connection being, this is the Adverse Childhood Experience Studies. If you ever want to look it up, it's called the ACE studies. It's been a longitudinal study. It's been doing amazing things, and spin-offs have come. But the number one thing is this connection that could be just the lunch lady. When I go through the lunch line, she says my name and says hi. I feel connected. It could be the janitor saying, hey, buddy, how'd your test go on Monday? Any kind of connection is better than no connection. So I love, this is my passion coming up. Shelley and I were musing last week, and I'll let you jump in, Shelley, and share some more in a second. And so we were asking so many elements of the universe were tapping my shoulder. Our beloved steward, Marion Head, had said, what's this one thing? What's this one goal that's so compelling that everybody will want to get on board with it? Everybody will want to donate. Everybody will want to see it happen. What is that one compelling thing? So Marion was saying that to me. One of my speaking mentors was saying, what's your big, hairy, audacious goal? What's your BHAG? What's your BHAG? What's your BHAG? And the big, hairy, audacious goal came up again. So Shelley and I were like, okay, let's just talk about this. What's that one thing? So Sharon saw it. John hasn't seen it because he didn't get the email. But I put in this week's email a goal. We would just want to feel into that. What does that feel into? Because when we're thinking we really want to trust this organism that's helping inform us, to inform the evolution of consciousness on the planet so we all feel connected and whole. How do we do that? We've had these three expressions. In the long run, how are we going to accomplish that? So Shelley and I came up with, and I love this, empower 10 million children to feel valued, connected, and whole by 2030. Really empower. And at first I'm like, wow, I mostly work with adults. I'm mentoring adults. And then it's like, oh, no. This works. I'm going to share one more story. And then I want to open it up to how does that feel when we say, we are here to empower 10 million children to feel valued, to feel connected, and to feel whole. And I'm going to read the expressions of those in a second. I had a young nursing student in a center that I had, a little healing arts center in downtown, and he would come in. We had a natural foods cafe and a tea bar, and he would come in for tea all the time. And he just got back from his commitment to the Peace Corps. He was a humanitarian at heart. His mom was a humanitarian, and he wanted to change the world. And he'd always come in and say, how do we change the world? How do we change the world? How do we change the world? And one day he came in and he said, Julie, I figured it out. I know how we change the world. And I said, well, Jabron, this is awesome. How are we going to change the world? What do you think? And he said, we don't have to go out and change the world. We just have to authentically carry our message, our why, authentically be this change and affect the 100 people around us, because we all know 100 people. And if we do this and do it really well, we affect those 100 people and they go out and affect their 100 people. And so when I think of empowering 10 million children, our work, if we literally affect 100,000 adults who can affect their 100 people, we will get to those 10 million children. So to me, it doesn't sound like this big ideal dream. It feels like, wow, we can put rudders under this boat and really be in that slipstream and move beyond that of really navigating through this. evolution of consciousness on our planet, because we need this now. So I want to feel into that. How does that feel? And when we say valued, they're being valued as whole beings. I wrote this in the emails for today. Valued as whole beings with unique gifts to contribute. Who doesn't want all children to feel valued? Connected. And I love what's come through with the influence of corporate and conscious business. Really feel connected to people, planet, and purpose. Like, that's an easy way to look at it. Like, really feel connected, children. And then also become active, engaged. So when we're looking at whole, that they become really whole with that bigger, greater whole that we're talking about. And I'll infuse that into the conversation here. We don't have a lot of time left, but I really want to hear your voices of how does that feel? And then we can muse into whole, being a part of a greater whole. What does that really mean when we're active and engaged and really get this interconnected universe, this true nature of our reality, that we're so much greater than we think we are in our small selves. So with that, I'm just opening this up. Linda's already unmuted and I can hear it, so I'm going to put myself on mute.
Wow, I am so excited to hear you say that. In some of my journals from way back and dreams that I've had, one of the messages, one of the insights was teach the children. And that was that simple, teach the children. And it took me a while to study that. What did that mean? Like, who are the children? What do we teach them? And to put it in a nutshell, it was coming back to me to teach everyone, we're all children, that God lives inside of them. Now, the concept of God might be, not as pleasant as it is for other people, but the idea that that higher self is living inside of them, and for them to see it, know it, acknowledge it. So I've often thought about children, teach the children. So I'm going to bypass a lot of how this has come to me, but at the end of March, I am going to be taking a yoga certification course. It's called Radiant Child Yoga. And I met the teacher Shakta Khalsa, who's written a lot of books on yoga. So it's not necessarily the traditional yoga, it's teaching the child how to be a radiant child and how to, they'll use a little bit of yoga with it. And then with my studies in connection, talking about connecting with the chakras and personifying that to bring it onto a level for children, I just feel that whatever I can offer when it comes to teaching children is going to be so in alignment with a calling that I've had for a long, long time. And I've worked with pregnant women, excuse me, for birthing a radiant baby, but I haven't, really worked with the children themselves, and I'd love to, because I now have 4 young granddaughters, and I think this is really a step that I am very excited about for them to feel valued, connected, and actively engaged. So one more thing is that Shakta Khalsa is coming to Chicago to teach this. She lives in Virginia. I met her because I was doing a chakra workshop with teenagers in another town, and it was a yoga center, and so Shakta was at that yoga center. She emailed me and said, I'm coming in maybe to spend a day early with you, and after I teach this, I'm going to be going to I Grow Chicago to teach a Qigong and yoga class. It's like, I Grow Chicago! And that was something that the Love Lives Here campaign, or the Love Lives Here experience, met I Grow Chicago from someone who was involved with that for good of the whole. So I thought, how it all connects. It was just very exciting to know she was going to be there. I might go down and meet them just to bring up the Love Lives Here. And Shelley wants to say something, so.
No, I'm just trying to like allow other people to speak, because we're
I'm sorry.
for 6 more minutes. So
yeah,
okay. I get the excitement. It's awesome.
I was very excited. I just wanted to share that with you. I'll be doing that at the end of March. I'm done. Well, I'll jump in since we got a short time. Um, I just want to say, I was on a Regenerous call the other night, and Donna Kuntz was on there and sharing, and the opportunity came to share up a purpose statement. And Shelley, when you said to experience, empower, embody, and express, and my purpose that I got in my 20s was to experience, express, and evoke. And I feel like it's the evoke part that we're doing right now. And what Julie, I think it was you that talked about what you're working with these partner organizations, and what you have to bring there, though, is how to hold that space, how to create that resonance. And that's this being in the field experience. That's the connection to the self and to wholeness. And we do it through meditations. We do it through holding that space. We do it, and it's the connection of that. So I love the touching the 100, touching the, and the psychotherapy, the same thing. It's like, I was with a couple last night doing some couple work with them, and it was like, I only wanted to get them to just remember their connection. That was like the whole goal. It's like, just remember that you love each other. You don't have to do this stuff. You don't have to freak out. So that's just beautiful. And so keeping it simple, maybe. The teaching, because remember, is to evoke. That whole original definition of education was not to cram it in, not to feel like we have to teach them, but to help them experience it. And the work's done. You're in there. Co-create with the kids, even at that point, once they can touch it. And I thought when you said the word connection was the number one thing for them, I almost thought you were going to say nature. Because I think when we don't have people, and somebody talked about their tree, that would have been, it's like you can connect with nature. You can connect with animals. For a lot of kids, I think it's animals, because the people aren't that safe space, don't know their connection. So somehow that's going to come in there too. And it's going to be through these partner organizations too. There's so many out there that work with kids. That's it. I'm complete.
Great stuff, all the way around. Kids, and we're all kids at heart. And when we forget that, then we go in a different direction. But I love and I've always said it myself, and now it's confirmed, that for the good of the whole. Well, that is so important. I think what kids don't have, and what unfortunately a lot of adults don't have, is that the whole is good. And if you don't have the whole is good, then you can't be for the good of the whole. As a matter of fact, and I don't want to get political, but the further right it seems we go, it's against. And as a matter of fact, not even that. When I was a child, the competition, the teaching that you go out and you kick butt as much as you can, and that's where you're going to get your identity. Well, then you have to ask yourself, well, is the whole good? If I have to go out and fight against the whole, how can it be a good thing? So many kids live in environments, like we talked about just now, that their impression of the whole is not so great. Now, even with religions that say God is good, well, that is such a restrictive definition of the whole that anything outside of that then becomes not good. So children, I trust one of my grandchildren, my grandchildren. I didn't do such a great job with my kids, but I learned over the years. And that is now that I'm more full with the good of the whole inside myself, I'm able to just bring that through and touch that in those children. And they know it already. That's where they live. That's where they want to be. And our teaching really is to, and Sharon, you just said in nature, beautiful one, because nature is a perfect representation of the whole. A game board is not an interpretation of the whole. It's a restriction. And so that's kind of where I'm going with, I definitely want to be, whatever I do and whoever I am, to be for the good of the whole. what I really want to do is spread the joy and the love and the perfection of the whole is good. I'm complete.
Okay, wow. Amazing shares, amazing shares. And I love what everyone's saying. And I love that the whole is good. That's a really good banner for us. It's very like base and important. And I love the evoke. And I was having issues with hearing well, we're going to teach, we're going to teach, we're going to teach, because I know it's much more about being the whole and listening for how we ripple this expression of the heart and the connection. We have to model that connection, and we all do anyway, but we tend to get caught up in the teaching, and maybe, you know, the educating is just creating environments. This is what's coming to me in the moment, is just creating environments where they, you know, the kids can feel into the joy of connection, like John's saying, and the beautiful things that Linda was sharing, you know. So everything's connected. So I'm loving this, because I think we're really expressing the value of connection and wholeness. For me, just really quickly, I was a foster mom for 10 years. And the one thing that's highlighted in this moment is the one child that I just stayed connected to, and I kept just holding the space for her to express and her grief, and just to keep telling her about the love, or reading her books about the love. Or she was the only one out of all those kids that actually went and became a social worker and began helping other children, and now is a nurse. So I feel like that's what we're doing. And the other piece that I want to add in is, you know, over the years, you know, I don't know if you know about Earth Guardians, but Chakes Scott, who is one of the most amazing young youth leaders, and there are many, many of them now coming forward. It's incredible. But to me, it's always been important. Like, that's where my money has gone, you know, to really support their voices, get them to know their wholeness. And so I think we're totally on the right track. I mean, you could feel it when Julie and I landed, you know, when it hit, it was just like, oh my God, this is it. And I know that I too have been listening for what is meaningful to me in these next 20 years, you know, is to, so I feel like this is Good of the Whole's voice. And you today have gotten to be a part of that, you know, expression. And just to know, even when Julie's talking about, or, you know, we're talking about the other organizations, because you're going to hear more about it and more about Sign and how we are synergizing and interweaving, is that is you. It's not separate from the mentoring stewards, you know, that all the information it doesn't mean that you have to feel pressured to enact, but at least have a sense of this, like Julie was saying, this interweaving that we're doing. So I think, honestly, the magic has happened, and we've really landed something that I think, you know, look at just even the 5 of us. We're totally behind this. This is the expression of Good of the Whole. And the organism that took a very long time to get to this place was because it was in its own infancy. And now it is like letting us know through this resonance that, you know, what it is that's the most important thing that's happening here. So thank you for helping shift this climate, being a part of this wholeness. And I pass it back to Julie. And look.
Can I share one other thing quick, Julie?
Sure.
Not too long. Just that I'm hearkening back to what you said also about programs and things, and that the teaching, I think, does come in where you can connect. When kids do connect into that wholeness, there's still a lot of room for helping them understand how to deal with the world. Like, I think about the revolutionary agreements, and there's like how to deal with conflict, how to deal with the adult, you know, with people who are not, you know. So there are skills and things that are teaching that can come into play and might be part of all of this.
Thanks, Sharon. I'm thinking about all of us here that have worked with people, like clinically worked with people doing healing work, and that this is at the core of so many illness. I think it is the illness. And Shelley's been quoting me on a couple calls that I think that wholeness is the medicine of our time, that this is the medicine. And literally, this is the politic. And this is, it is the solution for so many things. So thank you for acknowledging that, Sharon. And we're 5 minutes over, but if anyone needs to go, I would love for you to go, but I'd love to take 3 minutes. That means like hearing maybe a minute from each of you on this topic, because Shelley and I went into this topic, and I feel like what Shelley brings to this conversation is so true, and I'm wondering about the general public. So we have had a habit at Good of the Whole over the 7 years of saying for the greater good, or belonging to a higher, like we belong to a greater whole. So we initially wrote this goal that each child feels valued, connected, and part of a greater whole, because that's what we want them, that belongingness, that inherent belongingness that's real. It's the true nature of our reality. And yet, and Shelley, I'll just explain it unless you really want to go into it. As Shelley's talking about, when we feel whole, when we're really experiencing that wholeness, we're in our heart, we're in resonance, we're in that slipstream. When we are whole, there is no need to be a part of something greater. It is that. It is that. So in teaching that, like in teaching this as a medicine and a politic and it's an ethos for our culture. It's so much more. We dropped it and said, today, every child feel valued, connected, and whole. Yeah, we feel that. How do we need that language for the general public? That's all. That's just a query, a minute each from Linda, Sharon, and John, if you want to just in a minute say, do we need to explain what that is to be a part of a greater whole? Do we need to explain what that is to serve a greater whole, to contribute to a greater whole? Do we need to say it in our languaging, or do we just let it be to feel valued, connected, and whole? And that, so I'm turning it over. You each have a minute or less, and I have a timer. I don't want to keep everybody too long. I appreciate you staying. Thank you.
So, yes, and yes. I love what you're saying. Making America great again is a restriction around the whole. Even saying from the left, if you're defining the whole as a specific thing that we're asking people to believe in, there's going to be resistance. It's still dualistic. How do we get out of the space of, like you said, Julie, greater? Nothing is greater or less than what it is. So the terminology is very important, I think, for this. And again, I think it goes back is that I love the slipstream idea, because slipstream doesn't have a definition. It is an energy field. How do we, I'm working with my family. Tell me when I quit. On Facebook right now, I got so excited about you people. I want to reach my family who are leaning right, but are possibly available, and not have them come up and say, okay, yeah, what about this? The wall's good, what it's not good, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. Feel whatever you feel, but there is a whole that holds all of it together. And how can I love you in that space? And they're softening. They're beginning to soften. And I just love that. So it's and I'll give it all my attention, how to help children come into that space as well as all of us.
I'll put a quick 2 cents in. I almost think that, I do think that the word connected has whole in it. if you get children to feel connected and valued, that's it. Because for me, connected means connected to yourself, connected to the slipstreams, you're connected, and then it's connected to self, it's connected to others, connected to life, connected to, community. Community is a word that can mean many things too. But it's connected and valued might be enough. And then you expound on what does connected mean? What does it mean to be valued? Because valued also implies that you have gifts and people want them. You can be engaged. So.
I promise I will be less than 1 minute. I'm going to read Chief Seattle's quote, because this just always resonates with me. Humankind has not woven the web of life. We are but one thread within it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. All things are bound together. All things connect. That's Chief Seattle. And that, teaching children that premise from our ancient roots, again, it's connecting back to our history, and it's connecting to the future that we want to grow into. So I love it. I love it. I don't think I've ever felt so excited about good of the whole as knowing that it's the whole of the whole generation and bringing in the next generation for it, planting the seeds. Beautiful.
Thank you all for the.
How come I don't get to speak?
Oh, because you spoke last week, but go ahead, speak.
No, you verbalized what I said, but it was a little bit not quite exactly the same thing. I just want to say, in terms of clarification, that there's a difference between the tagline, because the tagline has to be like, the reason I was talking about greater or not having greater on there was that I was referring to like that push to be something greater, and the difference of the experience of wholeness is that you actually feel fully connected, which is what Sharon, what you were saying. So, but in terms of a tagline, which has to be really, you have to get it like right then and there, whatever, 1 million women, or, whatever it is, Earth Guardians, or that needs to be. So it was more, I think, really to just feel into it. And for me, the word whole does need to be there, because it is something that people, if you look at all the generations moving down to the children right now, everyone talks about oneness, and on an emotional level, the body doesn't get oneness. What's oneness? Oneness is more up here. We decide oneness, but the experience of wholeness, and the more you spend time with us, and the more you sit in that resonant field, there is an experience to that word whole. And that's where we're wanting to, to me, that's the essence of the voice of this organism, is that the experience of whole is something that will bring you to your feet in tears, because it's like, oh my God, I've never felt this before. And what we were doing when this whole thing was evolving was we were going between home and whole, valued, connected, and home. And like, you're going to think about the kids who don't have homes and the people who don't have homes, and they're going to like, whoa, that would be amazing to them. In the same way, in a slightly different way, but that word whole, like, I feel like that is what we've been called here to do, is to create the container for people to feel whole. Because when you feel that, like Julie was saying, there is no, I'll finish with my very first teen client. And it was one of the most powerful experiences I've ever had, where everyone was telling him who he should be and what he should be, and he's on drugs and he's doing this. And when that kid was just brought into that experience of wholeness, he could describe his dream with absolute clarity. And when he was left to experience, I'm going to be crying, like when he was experience his own wholeness, when he was told, given the space where the container was created for him to feel that whole being expressing itself, guess what? I mean, I lost track of him. And then 10 years later, he was doing exactly, he was in Israel, living on a kibbutz, working with kids. I mean, it was like he saw the whole thing. And so I feel like, so that's, as you're musing into this, and we don't have to decide this today, and we're really close, and maybe it's just what it is, or maybe, the explanations when we explain it, Julie, obviously you're going to be saying what you're saying, to be part of more of a unified field and a greater whole. But it's not really a greater whole, because then we're separating. So that was kind of the conversation. So I wanted everyone here to, at least, and who's ever listening, to understand kind of the depth of what's being offered here. And honestly, the why is the calling. Why are you here today? It's because you feel this, you felt something. And that's what, is really, to me, the essence. And yes, it needs all the other infrastructure that Julie's awesome at, and I'm not good at. That's not my role, as you will see. But anyway, so thank you for letting me say that, and I pass it back to you, Julie.
Well, thank you all. Let's just close with that wholeness again, because we're good at that. Let's just breathe into that again and take a few deep breaths. Just coming back into that expression of wholeness that's moving within us. Trusting that space, that vibration, that frequency, that unified field. And really tapping into that home frequency so that we bring it with us authentically, naturally, but on a more amplified note as we move into this week, that we really amplify this home frequency so that all those around us, our 100 people, naturally can sense into that. And with that, you can unmute yourself. Let me say thank you for showing up and being you. Thank you for being whole. Thank you for, yeah. Thank you, new mentoring stewards. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everybody. It's been great. Thank you.
Awesome. See you next Wednesday. Bye.
Yes.
Hey there. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.